All right, good morning. Welcome to the class this morning. We're going to get started with the guided project for chapter 1. All right, so we're going to go into the VOIM112 class. Again, we're on Blackboard. You go to the main page, My BSc. We're going to go into VOIM112. And to get to Simnet, we'll click on the Simnet link. And this screen may or may not pop up. If it does pop up, you select McGraw-Hill campus. Now this is the screen that usually pops up automatically when you click on Simnet. When you click on Simnet SimGrader, and it will take you to a screen similar to this. All right, so we're going to be working on chapter 1 this week. So we would click on the group Excel chapter 1. Again, with the Simnet, you'll always have access to the Sim book, which is very useful when doing assignments, and also the instructions. The instructions to the projects, I would recommend you use the Sim book as opposed to using the physical book's instructions. So again, you always have a Sim book in the chapter, and you'll always have at least 2 projects. And once it's time to take the quiz, the weekly quiz, you'll see the weekly quiz. It'll populate in the chapter that you're working on. So we're going to work on the Excel Chapter 1 Guided Project 1-3. And you see the due date is here. Now the due date is just saying that that's the date, that's the deadline that the assignment has to be turned in. Now you will have the whole semester to work on any late assignments, but just know that if you turn something in after the due date, it will be penalized with you'll have 20 percentage points taken off. That's for the independent project. The guided project, you don't receive any scores for it or any points for it. This is more so practice before you do the independent project. The independent project is scored and it counts towards your grade. So you always want to do the guided project first before doing the independent project. I always recommend that. Okay, let's go ahead and click on Excel Chapter 1 Guided Project 1-3. I want you to recall from the previous class session that we discussed the 3 steps that you have to work with in Simnet. You have step 1, which is download files. Step 2 is to save files. That's if you get to a point in the lesson and you don't have any more time to work on it. You can save it in Simnet in addition to saving it to OneDrive, because you always want to save it in 2 different places. You can save it in Simnet, and once you're ready to pick back up, you come back into Simnet and you would click on the file in step 2 and then start your work back up on that. And then step 3 is you're submitting it for grading, for Simnet to grade it. So we're going to concentrate on step 1 now, because we need to get our start file and our instruction file. We need to get any required files. So you have 3 options. You have optional downloads. You have your start file, which is required. You have your instructions, which is required. Always pay attention to this word right there, required. If it says required, that means that you need that file for that project. When we work on a few more projects in the future, you'll see something, I think it's called, if there's another file, a resource file, it'll say required. A lot of students get caught up because they don't pay attention to the resource file being there. And when they get to a point in the instructions where it says, we need you to download this picture from the resource file, students get confused about it. So always remember, any file in the downloads area, in the step 1 downloads file area, any file that says required, that's something that you need for the lesson. Alright, so the first file we're going to download is the start file. Now it's going to automatically download it to my downloads folder on my C drive. So if I click on File Explorer, I always sort by date modified. I always want the latest file at the top, so I click on that on the date modified tab. So you see there's my start file. It has my first and my last name, the name of the assignment, which is wherever shoes, and 01, which is chapter 1. So that's my start file. Now I'm going to download my instructions file. Again, we discussed this last week that there are two options here. I have a Microsoft Windows computer. I don't have a Apple or a MacBook. So I'm going to download the instructions for Office for Windows. So I'm going to click on that. And again, this is going to download it to my downloads folder on my C drive. So I'm going to open File Explorer back up. And if you do a Control R, that'll refresh the screen in File Explorer. So now I have the two required files in my downloads folder. Again, you go to this PC. You can either click on downloads here, or you can navigate to the downloads folder from the C drive here, the local disk drive, or on the left hand side you can click on the downloads folder. There's usually 2 to 3 different ways of getting to doing something in Windows, which is a good thing. Whichever way you're comfortable to opening your files, that's fine. Either way, as long as you open the file, that's all we need you to do. So we're going to open up our instructions, and I usually like to have both screens side by side. If I can't print out the instruction file, I'll try to have it side by side so I can see what I'm doing and I can mark off what's been done so far in the assignment. So I'm going to go back into File Explorer, and then I'm going to open up my start file. Alright, so I have my instructions file open. Now I'm going to open up the start file. So I go back into File Explorer, go into this PC, downloads folder, and then I'm going to open up the start file. It's always going to be a Microsoft Excel file for this course. I just did the first step. So again, I want to try to have these side by side as much as possible. Since I can't print out the document and check off everything when I'm doing each step, I'm going to have them side by side. And I'm also going to go into Acrobat Adobe, and I'm going to select the highlighter. So to do that, you go into Acrobat Adobe, and you have the options menu right here with the 3 squares or the 3 dots. Click on that, click highlight. So every time I do an assignment, I'm going to highlight the step that I completed. So just keep that in mind. It helps if you can't physically print these out and check off the steps that you've completed. Alright, so the first step says open the... So we'll look at step 1. It says open the wherever shoes start file. If the workbook opens in protective view, you click enable editing, which I already did. Change the project file name if directed to do so by your instructor. But since Simnet already names it the name that it should be named, we can go ahead and highlight step 1 or check step 1 off as completed. Alright, step 2 says remove a split and freeze panes. Now that's telling you what should be done after you do the steps below it. The steps that will allow you to achieve this remove a split and freeze pane, they're all letters. So you have to do A through G to successfully remove a split and pane. So it'll tell you step by step what to do. 2A says click the split button. The split button is located in the View tab, Windows group. So if we go into our start file, we go to the View tab, we go to our Windows group, and we need to click on the split button, the split ribbon button, and that's right here. So if we do that, after we do that, we're going to highlight 2A. All right, 2B says click cell A4 to freeze the column titles at this position. So I'm going to go back into the file. I'm going to go to column A, row 4, and we see in the name box it says A4. We click there, and then we're going to highlight 2B because that's complete. Now we're with A4 selected, we're going to click the Freeze Panes button. The Freeze Panes button is located in the View tab in the Windows group. So if I go to View tab, I go to the Windows group, and I click Freeze Pane. I want to select Freeze Panes. All right. So we completed 2C and 2D. 2E says scroll to row 31 and click cell E31. The column titles are frozen. So if we scroll down, you can see rows 1 to 3 don't change. So it allows you to see the title of each column. All right, so I'm going to go down to E31 like they told me. So we go scroll down to 31 and select and click cell E31. So we're on row 31. We need to go over to column E. So as you can see in the name box, it says we're in cell E31. So 2F says type 3 and hit enter and select enter. So if we go to E31, we type 3 and we click enter. So 2F is complete. 2G says press Control Home, and this is going to put the insertion point back to cell A4. So regardless of where I am, right now I'm on cell E32. Once I hit the Control button and the Home button, it takes me right back to cell A4, as you can see. All right, so after we finish 2G, we're going to go ahead and mark off 2 as being completed. So we'll move down to step 3. Step 3, we need to change the zoom size and unfreeze the pane. Now again, the letters below this step, that's going to tell us what to do to successfully change the zoom size and unfreeze the pane. So step 3A says click the 100% button. To get to the 100% button, we go to our View tab, we go to our Zoom group, and we click the 100% button. All right, so that changes the zoom to 100%. As you can see, it's 100% here. And if you look down in the right-hand corner, this is another way to get to the zoom. You click on the 100% down here. And this allows you to do the same thing. So 3A is complete. We'll move to 3B. Click the Freeze Panes button. So I'm going to go to the View tab, the Window group, and I'm going to click on the Freeze Pane. And then it tells me in 3C to choose Unfreeze Pane. So I'm going to unfreeze the pane. And then 3D says click cell A1. So then I'm going to click cell A1. So now that those are complete, I'm going to highlight all three of them. 3C is complete. 3D is complete. Okay, now that we've completed 3D, I want you to save your file. I want you to get into the habit of saving your file. To save your file, there's several different ways that you can save your file. You can use the Control key plus the S key. That's a way to save. You can save by clicking on the floppy disk in the left-hand corner, and you can see it says save, and beside it in parentheses you see Control plus S. That tells you what the shortcut key is. The Control plus S is the shortcut key. I can click that, or I can go to File and Save. So there's several ways that you can save the file. I just recommend that you get into the habit of saving your file as much as possible. So now we're going to move on to step 4. Step 4 says we need to check spelling in the worksheet. Again, the letters below 4, that tells you what steps you need to perform in order to check the spelling in the worksheet. So we're going to work on 4A. 4A says select B4 through B11. So I'm going to go into my file. I'm going to go to B4. Again, you see in the name box, it says B4. And I'm going to hold down my left mouse key, and I'm going to go all the way down to B11. And then I'm going to click the spelling button, which is located in the Review tab, the Proofreading group, and you see your spelling ribbon there. So you see it says the first occurrence of hiking is found as misspelled. So, and we see hiking is not in the dictionary. So 4A is complete. 4B says select hiking in the suggestions list. So if I go back over into the spelling, I see my suggestions list here. Hiking is already selected. So that takes care of 4B. And then 4C says click change all to correct all occurrences of the misspelled word. And you see to the right of that, it says figure 192. That means that this down here, this figure 192, this shows you, this gives you a graphical image of what you should be viewing right now. And as you can see, right now it has hiking selected, and you see on in my document, I have hiking selected. So keep in mind with the figure, and then it'll give you the figure number. Find the figure number and look at that graphic so that you can get an idea and confirm that you're looking at what you're supposed to be looking at. So I'm going to click change all. And once I click change all, you'll see that B11, B4 down to B11, you'll see the word change. All right, once a word change, you can see that it's spelled correctly. Spell check complete. You're good to go. I'm going to click OK. Okay, we're going to move on to step 5. Step 5 says use the fill handle to copy a formula. Again, we have letters below 5 that those are the steps that we're going to perform to use the fill handle to copy a formula. So 5A says click H4. So I'm going to go over to my file. I'm going to go to the H column, and I'm going to go down to row 4. So as you can see in the name box, it tells me I'm in cell H4. All right, once I click on H4, it says the formula is visible in the formula bar. The formula multiplies the quantity by the cost to calculate the value of the current stock. So as you can see, it says figure 193. Figure 193 is right here. So I should see equals E4 asterisk G4. So the formula bar is right here. And as you can see, I have equals E4 asterisk or times G4. So when you click on the formula bar, you'll see that there's different colors. So you see E4, I go down to E4, I see that that's blue. That tells me that that's E4, and I see that G4 is red. There's G4. So this corresponds with the columns that are in use. You'll see different colors as you make more and more formulas. It'll tell you. So if I see a blue number or a blue cell, I know exactly where it is in my document. All right, so we have 5. All right, moving on to 5B. 5B says point to the fill handle for cell H4. So if I go to cell H4, I'm going to click on H4, and there's a little a solid square right diagonal from the 5. Once you hover over it, you should see a plus symbol. So this is the fill handle. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go all the way down to H39. So that's one way of doing the fill handle. And it actually says to just double click. So I'm going to do the way that they recommend. So I'm going to do a Control Z to undo. And I'm just going to go ahead and double click the fill handle icon. And now it fills it in that way as well. So there's 2 different ways to use the fill handle. So 5B is complete. And 5C, yes, down to H39. We go from H4 to H39. So after I'm done with 5C, I'm going to click Control Home. That's going to take me back to A1. So I do a Control Home, and it takes me back to cell A1. And now step 5 is complete. All right, we're going to move on to step 6. Step 6 says click the Themes button, which is located in the page Layout tab, Themes group, and choose Ion from the gallery. Now we can see that this is the only step in step 6. There are no letters below step 6. So I'm going to click the Theme button. I'm going to go to the Page Layout tab. I'm going to go to the Themes group, and I'm going to go into the gallery of the themes, and I'm going to select Ion, which is in the second row. It's the first option in the second row. And once I do that, I'm going to go ahead and highlight 6 because that's complete now. So now I'm going to move on to step 7. Step 7 has 7A and 7B, so I'm going to start with 7A. It says select cells A1 through J1. So I'm going to go to A1, and I'm going to go all the way over to J1. And then I'm going to select Click and Merge, which is located on the Home tab in the Alignment group. And I'm just going to click on Merge and Center. So after I do that, you see that the Wherever Shoes spans from cells A1 to J1. So now I'm going to highlight 7A, and I'm going to move on to 7B. It says Merge and Center cells A2 to J2. So now I'm going to select cell A2, and I'm going to highlight all the way over to J2, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to go to the Home tab, the Alignment group, and I'm going to select Merge and Center. All right, now that's done. So 7A and 7B are complete. So now I'm going to highlight 7 because that's complete. Now the next thing I want you to do is save your document. We're at a point where I feel comfortable with saving. I think everything's done completely. So I'm going to click on the control key plus the S key. That'll save. I can also click the floppy drive icon up at the top, or I can click File, go to the back page, and click Save. One thing I want you to recognize that as you save, if you go into File Explorer, and you know that it's in the Downloads folder, you'll see your file, and you'll see that the timestamp has changed. So May 30th, 2020, it was last modified at 9:06 a.m. So that lets you know that that's the most up-to-date file. If you make a mistake and create multiple files, multiple start files for this lesson, the easiest way to find out which one is the correct one or the one that you last work on is you always want to look at the date modified. And if it's as close as possible to the date that you're at, the date and time, that's more than likely the file that was the last one that you worked on. So just keep that in mind. All right, we're going to move on to step 8. Step 8 says we need to apply cell styles and adjust row height. So we have steps 8A down to 8L to complete in order to apply cell styles and adjust the row height. So we're going to start with 8A. 8A says select cell A1. So I'm going to select cell A1 and click the cell styles button or the more button. It's located on the home tab. Select cell styles. We select the title. It's in the titles and headings category. So if you're in the cell styles, go down to titles and heading, and you see titles right there. So that's complete. So now we're going to move on to 8B. So next we're going to select cell A2. So I'm going to click on A2, and I'm going to apply the heading 4 style. So I'm going to go to the home tab, the styles group. I'm going to select cell styles. I'm going to go down to titles and headings, and I'm going to select heading 4. All right, we're going to move on to step 8C. Step 8C says click the font size arrow, which is located on the home tab in the font group, and we're going to select 14. Your font size change overwrites the font size of the cell style. So 8C is complete. All right, 8D says select row headings 1 to 2. So that means row, cell 1, cell 2. All right, that's 8D. And then step 8E says click the format button, which is located on the home tab. In the cells group, and choose row height. And we're going to select row height. Eight F says type 22 as the new row height and click enter. 22. I'll click OK. So you see the row height change. Step 8G says select cells A3 to J3. So I'm going to go down to A3. I'm going to hold down my left mouse click and go over to J3. 8H says from the Cell Styles gallery. Again, that's on the Home tab. Cell Styles. it says select cell style 40% accent 3. So if you go into cell styles, you go down to the titles and headings area and you select cell style 40%. Alright, moving on to 8i. It says apply bold to the selected cell. So I'm going to go to my home tab, font group, and if you see to the right of the word bold, you see Control B. That tells you what the shortcut key is. So I generally, when I want to do bold, I don't go to the home tab, font group, and select it. I usually just highlight what I want bold, and I do Control B. So there's multiple ways. You go home tab, font group, and if you hover over the bold key, you can see that it says Control B is the shortcut key. Alright, so that's 8i. 8i is complete. 8j says click the row heading, the row 3 heading. So if you click row 3, you want to, everything in row 3 is highlighted now. Alright, so now it tells us in 8K, it tells us to point to the bottom border of the row heading to display the resize arrow. So you see the resize arrow once you go in between rows 3 and row 4. You see it's like a straight horizontal line, and then you have vertical arrows pointing up and down. So then it tells me to drag the resize to 21 or 28 pixels. Now there's a couple of different ways you can do it, but we'll do it the way Simnet wants us to do it this time. So I'm going to go all the way down to, it tells me to go to 21. So once I get to 21, I see it says 21 and it says 28 pixels. So now the size, the row is the size that Simnet expects it to be. And it says even look in figure 1-190, figure 1-94, and that's right below. And you can see that there's right here, you probably can't see it on my screen, but it says 21, 28 pixels. So another way to complete steps 8J down to 8L is you just click on the row again, right mouse click, and go down to row height. And then you can type the row height that you want in there. Alright, so now step 8 is complete, so I'm going to highlight 8. Oh, hold on, we still have one more step. I didn't see that. They snuck one in on us. 8M. Click the zoom out button in the status bar if necessary so that you can see all rows. Alright, so I want to zoom out probably 50%. 60% is good enough. Now 8 is complete, and we'll move on to step number 9. Step number 9 says change alignment, format values, apply borders, and increase the indent. So there's a lot of things that we're going to be doing in this step. So I'm going to select, it says select cells D4 all the way down to F39. Yep, 9B says click the center button, which is located on the home tab in the alignment group, and we're going to select this button here, not this one. We want to select center, not middle align. Alright, so as you can see, all of my wording is centered now. Alright, so we're going to move on to 9C. It says select cells G4 to H39. step 9D says click the accounting number format button. That's on the home tab in the numbers group. And we need to click the accounting format. So now you see that it changes it to the numbers. And then 9E says click cells A3 to J39. Alright. 9F says click the borders drop down button. That's located on the home tab in the font group. And select all borders. Alright, step 9G says while the cells are selected, let's make sure they're still selected. Click the font size drop down, which is located on the home tab in the font group, and choose 12. 9H says select cells B4 to C39 and click the increase indent. So we're going to go to the home alignment group, increase indent. Alright, so the next thing we need to do is click columns A all the way to column J. And then 9J says double click the border between J and K to auto fit the selected columns. So I go between J and K and I'm going to double click. So now you see it auto fits everything in there. And it even gives you a figure 1-95, and it looks like 1-95. 9K says select and center align the labels in row 3. So if I click on row 3, make sure row 3 is highlighted, everything in row 3 is highlighted. I'm going to go to the home tab, alignment group, Alright, so now I'm at a point where I would like to save the document, so I'm going to do a Control S, or I'm going to go up to the floppy disk in Excel, and as you can see, beside the word save, you see Control S, which is a keyboard shortcut. I can click that, or I can go click on File to go back to the back page and select Save. So 3 different ways that you can save. I generally use Control S. So we're going to move on to step 10. It says, step 10 says insert a column and fill data. 10A says right click column heading B. So we right mouse click and we click insert. So that should put a new column. That should add a new column. In cell B3, we go to B3. As you can see in the name box, it says B3. We're going to type the word, or we're going to type DISC question mark. So that means, is it a discount or not? So that takes care of 10A, 10B, and 10C. Yeah. All right, in cell B4, we're going to type no, and we're going to press enter. So I'm going to go to cell B4, I'm going to type no and enter. Cell B5, it says type no and hit enter. Cell B6 says type yes and hit enter. Then it says select cells B4 to B6 and increase the indent twice. So I'm going to highlight cells B4 to B6 and I'm going to click increase indent twice. So that's located in the Home tab, in the alignment group, and you select the increase indent button. You click that twice. So 1, 2. And then we'll move on down to 8H. It says select cells B4 to B6 and double click. And this should and actually it says drag the fill pointer. So that's the other way that I was talking about earlier, where you can select the fill handle and double click, or you can select the fill handle and you can scroll all the way down to the bottom to the last row or column or cell that has information in it. Alright, so after that's done, it's 10J says press Control Home. That'll take me back to A1. Oh, it looks like it looks like I need to do step A or 10I. I missed 10I, so let me undo those. And I'm going to actually do step 10I, so I'm going to select cells A4 to A39, all the way to A39, and I'm going to increase the indent once, one time. There we go. Now I'm going to hit the Control Home. Alright, so now we're going to move on to step 11. Step 11 says we need to rename the Sheet tab. So we're going to double click the Sheet 1 tab, which is down here. This is the Worksheet tab. So we double click it. It should put a gray shading around it. Once it does, you're going to type the word inventory, and then you're going to press enter. That changes the name of the Worksheet tab. Alright, moving on to step 12. Use page layout view to insert a footer. 12A says click the page layout button in the status bar. So I'm going to go down to my status bar and I'm going to click the page layout button like they said. 12B says click the center header section, the header foot and that. So go to the view tab, click normal view, and then we're going to press Control and Home to take us back home. Alright, so we're going to move on to step number 13. Step number 13 says change the page setup options. So 13A says click the page layout tab and click the page setup launcher. So I'm going to go page layout, and the page setup launcher, if you go to the page setup group, you're going to see half of a square with the arrow pointing downward. (13B) says display the page tab and select the landscape radio button under orientation. So I'm in the page tab. You have margins tab, header footer tab, sheet tab, but it tells us to go to the page tab, and in the orientation section we want to select landscape instead of portrait. 13C says select the fit to radio button. And enter one page wide by one tall, which it's already in there. We got fit to one page wide by one page tall. Then it says click OK. I'm going to click OK. So that sets our page layout. So 13 is complete. 14 says we're going to set a print area. To set the print area, 14A says select cells A1 all the way down to K11. (14B) says click the page layout tab, which I'm already in. Click the print area button, which is in the page setup group, and select set print area. So as you can see in the name box, it actually says cells A1 to K11. They're now known as the print area. So if you hover over your name box, you'll see the words print area. Alright, so that takes care of 14B, 14C. Next, 14D says click Control Home, so I'm going to do Control plus Home. Now it says click the File tab and select Print to preview the worksheet print area. So I'm going to click File to go back to the back page. I'm going to click Print to preview, and you can see in the print preview area it has A1 to K41 selected as what's going to get printed. And then 14F says click the back arrow and return to normal view. So I'm going to click the back arrow, return back to normal view. 15 says click the save button in the quick access toolbar to save the workbook changes. The print area is saved. Alright, so that takes care of 15. We save the document. Now again, there's several ways that you can save a document. You can save it up here in the quick access toolbar. You can do Control S, or you can go File to go back to the back page and click Save. Totally up to you how you want to save. Step 16 says close the workbook. So as you can see, it gives us a figure to look at, 197. Our assignment does look like that, so we are good to go with step 16. Step 17 says upload and save your project. So I'm going to close out of this right here. And remember, previously you already know where your document is saved because either you wrote it down or you just remember where Simnet saves your folders or your documents once you download it. So I'm going to go into Simnet, VOIM, Simnet, McGraw-Hill campus, Simnet SimGrader. on, make sure you're uploading it to the right assignment. Since this is the guided project 1-3, I'm going to click that. I'm going to click on step 2, which is to upload my file. I know that my file is located in the downloads folder. I'm just going to highlight it right now. I'm going to look in the date modified column. I see that it was May 30th, 2020, and it was last saved at 9:52. I know that this is my file because it's only 2 minutes from the current time, and I know that was the last time I saved. So now I'm going to click open. Now instead of selecting no, I am ready to submit the file for grading. So I'm going to click yes, submit file. And before you click yes, if you look in the background, you see the current file. This is step 2, and you see that your file is right there. And you say important, this will be replaced if you upload a new file. So just keep that in mind that anytime you save a file into Simnet, that's going to be the latest file. It's going to replace any file that was in Simnet. So keep that in mind. But I'm going to click yes, submit the file for grading, which will take it to step 3. It's grading. And it looks like we may have missed something, but we have a 94. We have 30 out of 32. This is my first attempt, and it tells me exactly which step I missed. So I know I need to go into 8C, correct 8C, and then I need to go into 9K and correct 9K. And then once I'm done looking at what needs to be graded, I can go back into Simnet Guided Project 1. I can scroll down. I can see that I only submitted 1, but I have 5 attempts. It tells me the grade. If I'm satisfied with the grade, I'll just let it be. If I want to get 100, I'm going to go ahead and open up my file again, which is and then I'm going to go to, I think it said 8C and 9K. I'm going to go to steps 8C. Let's go to 8C. So it says I need to select A2. Go to Home tab. Yeah, that's not changed. That is definitely not changed. So it says select 14. So I changed that, and then it said 9K. Center align. Alright, so 9K. I need to go to Home tab, Alignment Group. I want to click the More button. I want to go to my Alignment tab, and I want to change the horizontal to center. So that should correct it. And I need to take that center off. That may have resolved the issue. So I'm going to save my file again, close. I'm going to go back into Simnet, and I'm going to upload it again. So I see the date and the time is 9:58. That's the latest file. I'm going to click on open. And I'm going to select yes. I'm ready to submit the file for grading. And hopefully we get 100 this time. Nope. So I got to go to 9K. So, I mean, I could continue to work on it. I'll go back. I can see that there are 2 attempts here. My grade did get better. So I can just keep trying, attempting to get everything to 100% or to the grade that I get the grade that I want. I have 5 attempts. I have 3 attempts left. I could keep trying until I use up all of my attempts, or I could just settle for 97. But at this point, I would say that we are complete with Excel Chapter 1 Guided Project 3.